Installing iDesigner Pro 2 is a pretty simple process, similar to other Windows software applications you may have previously installed. Also, if you have purchased this software with a new GraphTech cutter, it is suggested, although not critical, to set up your cutter prior to installing iDesigner Pro 2. Start by loading the program disk into the DVD or CD-ROM drive. Once the DVD is loaded, this may appear. Click Run Setup. At first, you may get a user account control message asking if you would like to install the program. Click Yes. The first thing it asks is the language that you would like to use for the installation. Choose your language, and then click OK. This will start to install the install shield that will guide you through the rest of the setup process. In this lesson, we'll explain some of the options as we go through the installation. The software is now asking you to look at your software key or dongle. If it's orange, then go ahead and plug it in right now. But if you have a blue key, wait until you have finished installing the software and then plug in the key. Click Next to continue. You may get this message that asks to locate the drive assigned to the orange USB software key. Locate the drive by either clicking on the Browse button, or if you know the drive letter, you can enter it in this field. In this case, it is the E drive. This will point the software to where the dongle is so it may obtain the licensing files. And then click OK. Click Next. Here is the licensing agreement that describes how the software may be used. Read this over, and if need be, print a copy of this agreement for your records by clicking on the Print button. In either case, if you accept the terms, then click this radial button here, and click Next. The iDesigner Pro 2 installation application will place a copy of the iDesigner Pro 2 folder on your C hard drive. If you need to change the destination to install the software, click the Change button and enter the new destination of where the software is to be installed. In this case, we can leave it at this location and click Next to continue. In this next window, you're given three choices. First, you get the full install, where it will install the full program. Now this includes tutorials, help files, clip art, a spell checker, and other features. The second choice is minimal install, in case you have limited space on your drive and you would like to install just the essential components of iDesigner Pro 2. Finally, there's the custom install, which is for our more experienced users in that it provides a choice of options to install. We'll choose the first choice. If you're new to iDesigner Pro 2, this will be the better choice since it will give you all the needed files. Click Next to continue. And now we can just wait for the software to install. As the software is installing, it allows you to cancel the installation at any time by providing the Cancel button at the bottom right. In this window, you'll want to check this box, since a cutter driver will need to be installed or updated. Generally, this is the GraphTech cutter you currently own. The drivers can be installed in the iDesigner Pro 2 software later on, but we have found it best to always install your drivers during this installation process. Click Next to continue. This window lists all the different GraphTech cutter drivers. First, we'll deselect the GraphTech CE5000 here. They place this here as a default cutter. For this video, we'll be using the FC8000, so we can scroll down the list and find that cutter. Most of the GraphTech drivers listed will show two different drivers, one being a GPGL driver and the other being an HPGL driver. For the video, we'll be using the FC8100 GPGL. But you should check your Graphtec cutter to see whether your cutter is using GPGL or HPGL. Then click Next. This next message box is asking to search for all the different fonts on your system. This is a good idea because it allows you to use these fonts later for lettering or text within DesignR PRO 2. While this process can be skipped, it is always best to allow it to find those fonts. So click Continue. Click OK, and the installer will now look for any DesignR PRO 2 fonts or VEF fonts. It will ask for a drive to search in. Typically, this is the C drive, for which we can click OK. Once all the fonts have been found or installed, click OK. This next window will install any added fonts or clip art that you would like to use in DesignR PRO 2. If you have a DVD, flash, or thumb drive, or if there is a location on your network where the clip art is located, select the location now and click Next. If you don't have added clip art or fonts to install, click Cancel. Click OK. It will ask you to restart Windows. Click Restart. To ensure that DesignR PRO 2 is installed correctly, let's open the software. We can do this by clicking on the Start button. Click All Programs, click on the DesignR PRO 2 program folder, and then DesignR PRO 2. The software should open up properly, as you see here. The next step is to make sure that the DesignR PRO 2 and your cutter are connected and communicating. Before doing this test, make sure that your cutter is plugged in, is turned on, media is loaded in the cutter, and the communication cable, which is usually the USB cable, is connected between the computer and the cutter. Next is to set up the cutter driver within the DesignR PRO 2 software. Start by clicking on the Cut pull-down menu, and then selecting Plotting Defaults. When the Plotting Default window appears, you'll see your driver that you've chosen during the installation listed here. Click on the Setup button to set up your cutter options. In this window at the top, you'll see a tab named Plotter Options. Click on it. Under the Resolution section, click on the Edit checkbox. And set the resolution to 1016. Click Apply, and then click OK. Back in the Plot window, down towards the bottom under the Cut section, select Page instead of Sign Blank, and make sure that Selected is unchecked. Click Apply, and then Close. The next step is to set up your Graphtec cutter to make sure that the settings are compatible with the software driver and that they're communicating. Each cutter is different, so if your cutter is not covered here in this video, please check with your Graphtec Cutting Pro manual on how this is done, although the steps are often similar. We will first cover the CE series. Start by pressing the pause key. Press the next key until you see Command. Press the Enter key. This will display either HPGL or GPGL as the command language. Change the command language to GPGL by pressing the down arrow key once. Once GPGL is displaying, then press Enter. The next step is setting the step size. In this case, we want to set it to 0.025 millimeters, or 1016, by pressing the up or down arrow key. Once the display shows 1016 or 0.025 millimeters, then press Enter. After that, press the pause key to put the cutter in ready mode. For the FC8000, press the menu key. Then press the up arrow key for interface. Then press the 1 key to set the command language. Press the 1 key again to set the command language to GPGL, and then press enter. This will automatically bring you back to the main menu. Once in the main menu, press the menu key again. Press the upper arrow key to access the interface menu. Press the 4 key, this time for step size. In this menu, press the 3 key for 1016 or 0.025, depending whether you set your cutter to use inches or millimeters for your units. We'll press the enter key now to accept the settings. And finally, press the menu key to set the cutter back into ready mode. Once the iDesigner Pro 2 driver and the cutter have been set up, they can now be tested for connectivity to make sure they are communicating. Keep in mind that all we're doing here in this lesson is to check to see if the iDesigner Pro 2 can send designs to your cutter, to make sure that they're communicating. Therefore, we don't need to cover everything about the tools we're going to use right now, such as the text tool and other tools. Those tools will be covered in more detail in the following lessons. The simplest way to test the connection is to create some text or lettering in iDesigner Pro 2, and then send it to your cutter. To create text, click on the text tool and another toolbar will fly out. Click on the first text tool in the toolbar, or what is called the Text Compose tool. Then click anywhere on the workspace and start typing. Once the text is created, we can now cut the design on our cutter. Clicking on the Cut tool on the Tools toolbar does this. It's the button that has the icon of the scissors. This will bring up the Cut Preview window. In this window, click on the last button on the floating Cut toolbar. This will send the design to the cutter. At this point, your cutter should be cutting. If it's not cutting, then there are a couple of things you can check. First, make sure that the cable is plugged in correctly into both the cutter and then the computer. If it still doesn't work for some reason, review the steps we have just covered to make sure a step wasn't missed. If you still have issues, contact your dealer where you bought the software, or contact GraphTech's technical support department at 888-318-3247.